I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing, please.
While we're standing, I would like to mention the passing of Mrs. Elaine Perry. Mrs. Perry was a lifelong resident of the town of Dayton. Her husband was a member of the North Dayton Fire District Board of Commissioners. She served on the Dayton-Rehoboth Adult Education Advisory Board way back when that program was first formed when the school opened. And I would also mention Mrs. Dolores Barboza, who passed away. She was an election worker for over 15 years. So in their memory, I would ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to open up the public hearing for transfer of a liquor license from Almeida's Country Store to Rochelle's Market.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Joe Devlin, I'm an attorney with offices in Newburyport and Boston, Massachusetts, and I represent the applicant before you. With me is Atul Kumar Patel, who is the owner of the applicant entity. He's also the proposed manager of record. Please, as the chair, we can just summarize the application
If you
before
could,
you.
please.
Trying to figure out how we got here, but as you may know, the Almeida's stopped running the store a number of years ago. They brought somebody in, he wasn't successful, it closed. I think, in getting to know them now for probably nearly a year through this deal, that they've reached a certain age that rather than be landlords, they're gonna divest themselves of the property. That's where they found a friend of Mr. Atul Kumar Patel's, Bikabai and Amit Patel. The proposed new property owner is in the audience as well. They're under contract to buy it. Mr. Patel, Atul Patel and Bikabai and Amit go to Temple together. They have some businesses together. So they've now brought Mr. Atul Patel in to run and operate the store and be their tenant. He owns a business, a convenience store, Rochelle's Market in Seekonk. He lives in Seekonk. He's also the general manager of a store in Uxbridge with a wine and malt license, much like this one. His intention is he and his wife will be the main people that are here. They'll hire a couple of employees. They will run the deli again. The difference is you'll see a new coat of paint, clean it up. They are getting some of the equipment that's still there, but there's some shelving that needs to be done. Some of the counters need to be redone, but they'll have coffee and pastries. They go in and make sure all the electrical works and it's brightly lit and just that it's an inviting place to be. That's their hope. What Dayton gets out of this is kind of a revitalized convenience store retail place at that further down from like Value Gas and that part of County Street, and the property owners will then now be new owners who will put a fresh coat of paint and upkeep and improve the property as well.
Does the board have any questions?
Is this, so will Rochelle's Market be selling liquor or just beer and wine?
It's just a wine and malt license.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still going to have a little restaurant area that's in there?
Deli? Yeah, a little deli.
Okay. Are you buying the entire property?
He is not. He actually in this one is he's going to be the 100% owner of the business. He's an arm's length.
Okay, so who will own the property?
That's Amit Patel.
Okay.
Not related. I was here years ago for Danny Patel in Dayton as well. They're not related either. I think I probably explained this back then. It's a province in county in India called Gujarati, and it's the predominant name is Patel. But they do go to Temple together, and that's how they met and then became business.
Will the daycare stay there?
Yeah,
Okay.
they will to stay there. Yeah.
Okay.
It was the empty space that for someone
Yeah.
coming in to buy it. That's panicky, so they found somebody that they really trust, who they know is going to run a good store.
Does the board have any other questions?
I don't, Mr. Chairman.
If not, does the public have any questions? Any concerns? Not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the transfer of the liquor license from Almeida's Country Store to Rochelle's Market.
Is there a
Second.
second? Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
So we have invited the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen, and we have 4 members of that board sitting in front of us. We have Dave Perry, Mike Costello, Jerry Schwal, and Skip. I want to call you Skip. The other 5th member is not here. Jim's not here.
Mr. Murray? Oh, I know how that is.
So we've been meeting quarterly. This is our second meeting since I've been on the board anyway. So you have the floor, if you wish. Any questions, any concerns, anything you would like to bring up?
We're here for, we were asked to come meet with you. So we're here, I believe, you wanted to discuss DESI's involvement in our regional school district. At least that's the sense that I got, so we're here for you.
Yes, I'm not sure where that came from, Desi, but we're willing to discuss some of it. Does the board have any questions?
Can somebody give us an update? The last thing we saw was the letter saying what the Rehoboth assessment would be, and that the Department of Ed, elementary and secondary, would be involved. So can anybody tell us, has anything happened since then? Or what is happening?
We haven't heard word one from.
So you got the same letter we did?
We got the same letter, and it appears we have gotten the same response from our friends at DESI, where they said that they would be involved with the towns, and we haven't gotten a single telephone call or email. I did see a copy of an email that was sent by a constituent to Mr. Sullivan asking some specific questions. His response was curt and terse, that I just got here and I don't have an answer, and I will get back to you when I do. And I don't know if he's gotten back to the constituent, but certainly we were not copied on that.
Okay. I know
So, couldn't tell you.
Monday, I think it's Monday, we have a meeting of the Financial Advisory Board again.
Mr. Chairman, we have the chair of the school committee here, so maybe they
Excuse me,
might
did
have
you say it
an
was
update.
canceled?
It's canceled because the open meeting law violation was filed against the Finance Advisory Committee, against the school committee, but the school committee is actually not the body that signs the regional agreement. It's the 2 boards of selectmen. So we canceled it.
You want to come up here so people can hear you? There's a mic here.
Please identify yourself.
It's Kathy Cooper. Mr. Deignan filed an open meeting law violation against that Finance Advisory Committee, and in speaking with our lawyer, the Finance Advisory is created by the regional agreement, so the regional agreement signed by the 2 boards of selectmen. It doesn't state that the school committee oversees the Finance Advisory Committee. So we had been doing it, and it had been done as like a Superintendents Advisory Committee, but that it's actually not something that the school has to be.
Who canceled the meeting?
Who canceled it?
The meeting I'm talking about was scheduled for next week.
Yeah, I thought that it had been sent out to be canceled. I mean, Dr. Azar should be canceling it then. I mean, today he just switched it to being whether we have a budget advisory meeting instead. So some of the same people, I think he was gonna reach out for someone, for whoever the Dayton Finance Liaison is, and he was just talking about it today, because this just happened since our last meeting, which I missed. I
When was your
wasn't
last meeting?
Tuesday, so I missed.
Of this week?
Last week, yeah.
Mr.
So,
I saw a letter from Dr. Azar that was sent out that I interpreted that he was the one that was canceling it for the reasons that Kathy was sharing. But there was an email that was sent out that I saw as a, I guess as a member that was, I'm not sure if it was to me, as a school committee member or as a finance committee member, but there was a letter stating that he was not, that he was canceling it.
I'm glad you're here tonight, because I serve on that board, and this is news to me. Did we get any notification? Has anybody seen anything? Mr. Swartz from the Finance Committee, Mr. Rendon from the Finance Committee, and I represent the Board of Selectmen. Absolutely no notification at all. So thank you for the
Yeah.
information.
He may still plan on, if people want to attend the budget advisory and the budget subcommittee, and if there's people that want to
Well,
speak on
I
behalf
don't
of that,
even
if
know
it would be
about
the
that
same
meeting.
thing. But it would be this, it's the same time, that's why it switched to the budget subcommittee. And that was just posted this afternoon.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, under this open meeting law violation, who has the duty to call the meeting?
The boards of selectmen, apparently,
So the boards of selectmen,
form a finance advisory committee, and apparently it's the duty of the finance advisory committee that's created by the boards of selectmen in order for them to elect a chair of their finance advisory committee, and they're responsible for posting their own meetings.
but this committee's already been formed. We've
If I may,
appointed,
because I served on that at one time.
I remember
The-
that.
You do, you and I believe, you and I
Mhm.
served. It is called for, it wasn't created by the boards of selectmen, it was put in the regional agreement. There was a condition in the regional agreement that was negotiated between the two boards of selectmen and put by the town, so, but normally when you have a committee, the first act of that committee is to organize and elect a chair. Well, that's never been done in the history.
Correct.
The superintendent assumed control of the advisory committee, led the discussion, led the group, and that's the way that it's been. So I don't believe it would be the responsibility of the boards of selectmen to schedule meetings. However, it would be whoever the advisory committee elected as chair, saying as though Dr. Azar, and previously to Dr. Azar, the other superintendents assumed the same role. It would be their responsibility to post it, not the school committee, we agree. But Dr. Azar in this case should have posted those meetings, apparently.
Well, no.
If that's what we're being told by you're being told by your attorney.
Not exactly, because it's confusing, because the word advisory was used in the finance advisory committee in the regional agreement, but the word advisory for a superintendent's advisory is typically something that doesn't have to be posted. So if it's a subcommittee of a school committee, you have to have it posted, but if it's an advisory committee where school committee members may attend it, but they're only in an advisory position, not a voting position to give a recommendation back to the school committee, but they're giving recommendations to the superintendent, which is kind of how that got organized, was that the people from each town were advising the superintendent in the building of the budget as it takes place. So I think there's a little bit of confusion with the word advisory having kind of two different meanings. One may be intended in the regional agreement, and one a typical advisor, superintendent advisory.
so what
I
I,
agree that there's confusion, but I believe it goes beyond that word advisory. What we have been told by our council is anytime a group meets regularly, and is called a committee or is formed, as in this case between Dayton and Rehoboth and the school committee, that pretty much becomes a standing committee, therefore open meeting law applies. If you get a small group together, as we did one time, for one meeting, and you don't have a quorum of any board present, and you have that conversation, and you don't begin to meet regularly as the same group, then that's fine.
Well, superintendent's advisory can meet regularly and does not have to be posted, from everything I know from NISC.
I take strong exception to that. My position is, if you call the meeting, post it.
Well, that's why we typically.
Because if you don't post it, and you should have, you're gonna get hung. If you didn't have to post it, there's no problem. And I would think that this advisory committee, that both towns have people on it, I think the next step would be that the superintendent call a meeting. We have that, and post it. We have the meeting and organize the committee.
Agreed.
Going forward after that, whoever the chairman, clerk, that's who would do the posting and all that. But you have to start somewhere. And I agree. I don't know how many years I've been attending these, both back from 7 to 10 and then 15 on. But they were all called by the superintendent. We've had a few superintendents. And this issue had never arisen before. And I also agree what you're saying about, for example, we have a group of citizens who attended a meeting a week or so back because the veterans agent is working on Memorial Day Parade. And all he wants to know is feedback from the town. What do you want to do? So we got together at the old town hall and gave him feedback. We're not a committee. It wasn't posted. This is his task, and he's doing it. So it was just a meeting to get feedback, all right? But when you have a committee that's formalized in an agreement, that's got a name, that's got a function, whoever calls the first meeting should post it. Just,
So is it your position then that the superintendent can call this meeting, and then they can elect the chair, and then the chair from...
What I wasn't at the last meeting because I was, I couldn't be, it went very unexpectedly. But when I had talked to the lawyer prior to that meeting, she said that it's not our responsibility to organize it. It was great that we did, but that it's really up to the boards of selectmen to pick who's on that committee.
no, and the selectmen have done that. That is correct.
But not even that the school would be responsible for organizing it, that she saw it as a committee that would advise the school committee once they've met together and said, this is what we want from the school.
It would be up to the committee to organize, not the school
Yeah.
or
Not
not
the
the board of
school.
But who
selectmen.
calls the meeting?
Well,
That's my point.
Traditionally,
Whoever-
when you start, and just brought up a suggestion here, if we start a committee, the first meeting is either presided over, will be either the liaison to that new committee calls the meeting, or the chair does. So either the liaison or the chair goes and organizes, and then they leave. The committee is off to the races. Skip has suggested that to do this, we can jointly call a meeting of this advisory committee. Perhaps Chairman Pacheco, you and I can attend, or we can designate someone to attend for the sole purpose of organizing the committee. And then once there's a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk, we leave. Actually, after the chair, we can leave. Then the chair takes over. We're done.
So-
So after that point, though, and this is what, we also do that here in Dayton as well. After that point, though, it's on the committee
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
to self-patrol their
Post their
meeting
meetings,
postings,
get the minutes
canceling
done.
their own meetings.
Correct.
Okay.
Minutes.
Minutes, yep.
If they'd like to have it, in our case, televised, they make the request to our public access to see if there's availability when they're meeting to be able to tape it or to televise it, yes.
Sure.
It's self-policing.
So Nancy, you should have received the email was sent to you and Ken on January 17th at 11:51 a.m. So I don't know if you get and Google out there, Dayton-ma.gov.
As a
Is that
matter
the
of
one that
fact,
forwards?
I did check that yesterday, and I didn't have it.
Yeah, so, did you spell your name? Ngoullart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you might want to check why you're not getting email.
Or it may have went to
Ken,
like a
did you get it?
spam folder.
I got it and I forwarded to our town administrator.
Okay, so you guys can forward amongst yourself. Okay, so anyways, it was sent to you, but,
So going forward, if the two chairs schedule a meeting so we can organize,
And I
is
guess
the
you'd have.
school department, and I'm not saying school committee, is the school department going to cooperate and give us the information we need so we can act as an advisory committee?
I think part of that committee is to figure out exactly what the role of that committee is and how it fits in with the school.
That's not my question is,
exactly.
that's just a committee assignment. I'm asking
It
the question.
doesn't specify in the regional
I'm
agreement.
asking the question, since we're a financial advisory committee, it would seem to me we would get our financial information from the school department.
But I don't think you can speak for the school department. You can speak for the school committee, but not the school department.
The school committee is the umbrella organization that is in control of the school department.
But see, I'm unclear if it's that you're presenting your finances from a town perspective to the school committee of what is available for funds and what else is planned, or if you're advising specifically on the school budget. It doesn't say in that regional
The
agreement
first
what the
thing we would
role
need
is.
would be a draft budget.
Mhm.
Even if the meeting were going to take place, my understanding from the last meeting we had was, because I specifically asked for it, when are we going to get budget information?
I believe the budget's gonna be ready Friday,
And
the preliminary.
so if we are a financial advisory committee, we would need financial information from the school department, which would be the budget, I would think. We would have to attend meetings when budget is being discussed, because if we weren't there, we'd have no idea how to make recommendations, because we wouldn't know what was in there. So I guess if you're gonna schedule this meeting and have this committee come together, we need to know who's gonna provide the information we need to even start.
I just wanted to give my opinion, so the 2 points that, what is the point of the committee? I actually think that, I'm not gonna speak for my colleagues, but I actually think that we both would agree that it would make more sense that this committee is of individuals from both towns, not necessarily on the school committee, who go over the school committee's proposed budget and make recommendations from the town's perspective, the two respective towns' perspectives on what's possible and what's not. I think that might actually go to address some of the concerns that we may have had last budget season, so that's just my opinion. You
And I agree
gentlemen can
that
speak for
that's
yourself.
how it was. It got a little frustrating because we didn't get all the information that we needed. And that was Mr. Malone, not Dr. Malone.
I was just gonna say, through Mike Malone,
Yeah.
that was the last meeting when we actually got tangible information.
Right.
Hard copies, discussion, and everything else.
And that's what we focused on. So the school, the administration, to separate from the school committee, the administration provided information to the advisory committee, and then we would have discussions as to whether or not that was even feasible.
Mhm.
So there was providing that feedback to the administration that this may not work or may, whatever the case may be. But to your point, we need the information, and it's difficult to get sometimes.
Oh, and I think also the advisory committee needs to know the role of the Department of Ed in this, because this is before we would just meet with school committee. So now there's a third party involved. It's not only the committee made up of 2 towns under the regional agreement who met with the school committee, school department, superintendent, so forth. We now have the Department of Ed involved, and the question is, what is their role and does that change anything we're supposed to do? So that's another question.
Well, we were assured in the letter that they would be actively involved in the preparation of the next budget.
Mhm.
I haven't seen any of that. Now, I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but we've certainly received no communication. It seems like business as usual. I was waiting, I think we were waiting to see if Dayton had received any information from DESI, but before elevating this to the next level. But it seems like we've wasted, December and January now, 2 months. That's what it appears. And it doesn't seem to be hearing anything different or new, except today they released a cherry sheet, and the preliminary cherry sheet number shows that our Chapter 70 money for this district is down about $160,000 from last year. So I'm not sure how that all worked, but that was what came out late this afternoon.
Mr. Jefferson?
So with that point, though, I mean, we asked that same question to our administration, who watched our last school committee meeting, but the response was, go along your budgeting process as usual, and they'll come in at the end and review it. The school committee doesn't vote a budget anymore. We won't do the final vote, but they want us to go through the regular process and all of that stuff, so.
Yeah.
That's what was
So for
shared with us last week, 'cause we had the
contracts,
same question.
We're doing everything with the contract, and then they're signing off on it.
Well, we were told all along during the going way back when with all this, the town meetings and the problems, and then DESI comes in, or the Department of Ed comes in, we were always given the impression that they were coming in with boots on the ground, and they're going to come in and go right through, and take care of the budget. But we're finding out that that isn't true, that everything is being done the same way it was last year, and that they're only gonna review whatever they do from where they are in Boston, so.
It doesn't seem, their definition of financial oversight certainly differs from what my definition of financial oversight would be. It appears, on the part of some, that we need some help in creating a sustainable budget, especially when DESI is adamant that the school department nor the towns shall use one-time money to fund the operating budget. And we all agree with that. We've said that for years. But understand the school shouldn't use it, and nor should the town. So our position will be, we will not be using any one-time money to try to fund this. So if they're the guidelines or constraints that DESI has imposed, then DESI has a responsibility to be here to work shoulder to shoulder with our administration to make sure that they understand every number that's in that budget. And I don't know how you feel, but I personally, we've not taken a vote, but I personally feel we need to hold DESI accountable as well. They're here, let them do their job.
I never got the impression that DESI was gonna get involved in next year's budget, that they were gonna let the towns deal with it and not get involved in it. So I don't know where that's coming from, that you thought, or others thought that they were, they obviously took over, well, I didn't see it in the letter, because they took over the budget presently, they've set the budget, and they're monitoring all the monies, but I never got the impression that they're gonna get involved at all in
I'm
fiscal
not
year.
sure how you can say, if you could show me how you know that they're monitoring the expenditures, I
Well,
would
have-
appreciate it,
well, they
because
have
we don't
control.
know how that's being
They have
done.
control, I don't know,
Okay,
I'm assuming they're monitoring, but they
Well-
have control over, well, they have control over it, and if certain monies are spent, they have to have the final say in it, that's my,
that's what the letter said, I agree.
It
but
appears
we're
all
not
they've
saying-
done is laid out the rules and saying, here's what you have to spend. Don't expend anything over $25,000 without permission. From what I've seen, that's about the only guidance they've given you, isn't
Well,
it?
any contracts, anything that's a financial, they have to
Yeah.
oversee it. But don't forget that the end of year also sends all the financial data every year to DESI. So they
Yeah.
review this every single year, and we have an
So,
outs-
But
outside audit
at the end of
every
this
year.
financial year, they will review everything that transpired.
Yes, and they've been involved with
Well, that's
closing.
like my accountant. I don't want him to tell me what I did wrong. I want him to advise me going forward.
Yeah,
But
But he
you
will
haven't
be-
had any,
he will be.
you haven't had any communication with them?
I haven't any
As far as going
communication
forward.
with Jay Sullivan myself, but he's supposed to be coming
Okay.
for a meeting, and then I think we'd know more than once he does, but he has, as we have gone along, he has been the one that has signed off on everything.
Yeah.
And he's been in close contact with Paul Kitchen in anything financial. So,
But they're not really calling any shots other than the
I don't
First-
know,
but the first
until I
letter we
meet
got.
with him myself, I
Yeah.
can't really, I don't know what exactly he would, say till we actually do physically meet with him and go from there. And then as far as the E&D goes, just the realization is that if we don't use the E&D, then that ups the assessments. So part of the reason we try to use the E&D is to alleviate the assessments to the towns too. So,
We understand
there's
that.
one-time funds, but,
But
There's also being in a bad
They were very
situation.
clear not to do that, and we will be, I believe, be forced to take the same position.
then the assessment will increase
And
based on
we
the
will
amount
be-
that won't be available to be used again.
I think just to illustrate the point Mr. Schwal pointed out, is you heard him say that cherry sheets are $150,000 less, but yet we know the cost next year is gonna go up, and it doesn't just, money just doesn't come from anywhere, and I know we all avoid the elephant in the room, but we all probably know there's not a heck of a lot of waste in that budget. The problem people have problems with is the assessment, so that's what we sit here and we'll say it's the problems with the budget, problems with the budget. DESI reviewed that budget when they set the 1/12 budget. I don't expect them to be sitting there with a fine tooth comb because they already have done that. And we all know, and we've asked members on our school committee that say there's problems with the budget, showed where they are, and it's not the budget, it's the assessment, which we all know, so.
Well, and it's the way that they calculate it. I mean, the way that they're calculating it, and I have a thing that I dug up today that I wrote January of 2015 on how Chapter 70 is calculated. You can't really change the fact that the values in Dayton are half the values in Rehoboth. The income in Dayton is half the values that are in Rehoboth. That there's more millionaires per the amount in Rehoboth, and that number, who knows what that 25, 27 millionaires are actually bringing in for an actual number. It greatly skews the entire factoring of how they're calculating. Because what they're doing is they're taking the entire the entire income for the entire state, and they're also taking the entire property values for the entire state. And they're back calculating from this amount of money, what rate do we have to use for each town? So say they use 0.2, and they multiply Dayton's total amount by 0.2, and then they multiply Rehoboth's by 0.2. The number that you get with Rehoboth, if you're starting with twice the size number, is obviously far greater, and then they're using that to about calculate a need gap. Because the goal is, from what I've read, to have education that's equal from town to town. So you don't have one town that's, you know, a city or is poor, and that they don't have the same funds in order to educate their students there. So the Chapter 70 is supposed to backfill based on what it looks like the income a town has. Unfortunately for Rehoboth, I think the numbers are greatly skewed. It's that they should be cutting off the top, you know, top 5% or something like that in order to try to equalize it, because I don't see Dayton and Rehoboth as being, on the average person, that different.
It's
And
not.
the way that it's
The
done.
difference is a $3,000 per family difference, the income in Dayton and
Or
Rehoboth.
house values.
Yet we have a greater percentage.
I feel like
Dr. Z has a question.
this issue of the method, the assessment method, I feel is that discussion is more pertinent for the amendment task force. So I have said openly that if you gentlemen want to reinvigorate that task force, then let's have that discussion. I'm more than happy to do that. But I do want to get back to the original point, which was who's going to forward the budget information to the advisory board. So I assume once the budget is approved, or
I heard they should have a preliminary on Friday that's going into our packets for our next meeting.
so
So
once,
we hopefully will have it all by Monday.
and then will that information be forwarded to the advisory
Everybody that
board
wants it.
once that
Yeah.
committee is set up and has a chair and a clerk and all that?
The regional agreement requires a preliminary budget to be presented to the towns, and I believe it was before today. If it's
February
Friday,
14th.
but,
Yeah, they moved it to February 14th.
then it must be sent to us and it would come to the town halls for distribution. It comes to our treasurer, I don't know where it comes over here, but it's given to our treasurer and she immediately distributes it to the folks who need to have it.
So since our respective boards of selectmen make the appointments to this advisory board, is it expected that we might make suggestions or recommendations to the board, through the board, on the budget? Like, how does this all work?
I don't know whether it would be, so you'd want the budget subcommittee at that meeting, like it's been done in the past, or whether you'd want the entire finance advisory committee to report back to the whole school committee, so everybody's hearing the same thing at once. I can see both.
I don't have an
sides of that.
opinion, I
don't
just wanna
really.
know what everyone else thinks about
What was
this.
it,
I was
what was
gonna-
this committee, what was their task? What was we told they needed to do?
We were to be actively involved in the formulation of the budget. And up through Superintendent Malone, who was the interim after Dr. Montagano, that's pretty much what happened. We would get budget information early. It was preliminary, but at least you had a ballpark. Since the Mike Malone era, I've been to at least 2 public hearings when I sat through well over an hour and came out of there with no idea what the total budget was. I didn't have anything at all. I asked this year for a budget preparation timetable. I asked that at the last meeting. Does anybody know if that's been formulated? A budget preparation timetable starts out with, it's late now, but you would normally start out with, my guess is around October, where your administrators would get together and submit their school budgets. Best shot they got goes into central. They put the budget together. Then there are some meetings, so that by the time this preliminary budget goes to the school committee, it will have gone through the administrative team,
Oh, yeah,
principals,
that's right, yeah.
and the superintendent. So now they're ready to start talking. I have not seen anything like that. And then as the budget preparation timetable continues, you start listing deadlines that you have to meet, like you talked about the regional agreement, and so forth and so on, and you bring it right up to the public hearing. By the time it goes to the public hearing, that should be the budget that's headed for town meeting, the first town meeting. Now, if all the information isn't there, like usually insurance, medical insurance, we're all kind of waiting for that. You can say, actually, the rates came in better, and we can reduce that a little bit. So that's fine to do that. But at least by the time we're headed for the public hearing on the budget, we're in the ballpark of where this is gonna be. And of course, the next thing that's gonna happen is it's headed to the Rehoboth Town Meeting, because you meet first. I just want to comment on what you said. There was no question in my mind when I read the letter from the Department of Education, DESE. They intend to have oversight in the budget for FY '21. And I think what they're saying, what I got out of that was, we want the school department, school committee to put together a budget that hopefully is gonna work. But we are gonna be involved because they don't want another situation like we ran into this year. So I believe they are gonna be looking, are they going to be in the day-to-day, hands-on preparation? I don't think so. But in all honesty, by the time all of us get to that public hearing, I would hope if DESE's got any concerns, we would have heard about it, because we certainly don't want to go into a public hearing and have discussions that the DESE says, oh, wait a minute, because then you say to yourself, we did all this work, where were they? We want to go in ready to address the issues with our communities. We want to hear what the school department's got. At the meeting we had last month, I know Mr. Swart said, hopefully, at our next meeting, if possible, everyone can put on the table, this is what we think we have for a ballpark, meaning money, so that no one is, surprised if a town says, we're anticipating X. So that's what I'm looking for, and I'm hoping that's what we're gonna see. But I agree with Dr. Z. We need to get that information from the school department as soon as possible. When it's given to the school committee, I would think it's a public document and could be sent to the towns at the same time so that the committee would have it.
Yeah, once we have.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think we accomplished one thing tonight, that we have the two chairmen get together with the committee, reorganize, and get that committee going, and they can post their meetings and organize their meetings and do what they need to do.
And we'll attend the first meeting.
Just to organize it,
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
And then
And I think when we have our first meeting, we need to let everyone know, the superintendent and the school committee know. Just like at the last meeting, we had school committee members there, we had a few people, public, sitting in the audience, but let everybody know, and they can decide if they're coming or not. And the school committee members were sitting at the same table we were, and were certainly welcome to get into the discussion. Weren't doing budget, but when we get into budget, obviously, if any of them want to speak, on this whole thing, but I think the main thing is that the people who were there the last time, and any newcomers, in my opinion, are welcome to come. Let's get the input, let's get this done, let's get the information so we can discuss it.
Then I feel when the committee is organized and all set, then it can request information that it's needed to review from central office.
Right, and I think the other thing we gotta keep in mind is, since this is a committee that's in the regional agreement, it needs to be posted in both towns and at the regional high school where the official posting place
Agreed.
is. So it's gotta be posted in 3 places minimally,
agreed.
and we can put it on our website.
We'll wrap this up because we could.
Yeah, I just kind of answer your question, Brett and Nancy. So I think historically, since Malone days, from what I've seen of this committee, it was the superintendent that called it to try and gather information from both towns, saying, okay, what are you guys expecting, any major projects? Are you going for a new town hall? Are you going for this? And to try and balance, the whole, what was gonna be put forward from the school committee. And like you're mentioning, is what's in the regional agreement is completely different from what's been being done from everyone. And we were all, when the lawyer looked at it and was like, you guys have been completely doing this wrong and you may know years past how it was done, but essentially the 4 subcommittee members from the school committee aren't even part of that advisory committee. It's the selectmen make it up, and then I don't know how you guys advise, maybe go back to the school committee and say, hey, the towns can only afford X, or here's what we're looking at, and then that comes into the administration when they're putting their budget together. But
It was pretty much open discussion. The superintendent, whoever was there at the time, always called it. And it was a pretty open discussion with the 6 members that were appointed, 3 from each town. But certainly, school committee members could be part of the discussion. And, excuse me, if there were extra finance committee people or other town officials sitting in the audience, they were certainly welcome to comment too, so.
And I respect you, we need to move on, but to try not to have a problem similar to this, do you feel that we just appointed a person to the district facility review committee, I believe is the name of it. Again, this is a committee that is now made up of members from Dayton and Rehoboth, and I believe school committee and a number, who will be meeting regularly. I consider that a public meeting. Do you agree?
Yes, and it needs to be posted.
I can tell you that meeting for Thursday, unless I've missed it, there's a meeting scheduled for Thursday, it has not been posted.
How are we making an
So I-
appointment tonight?
Right, so it's
so-
supposed to be,
okay, so
we're
you're-
making an appointment tonight
Okay,
on our
so
agenda, but it
we-
is scheduled for tomorrow.
We may want to have that
Oh.
not meet, or again,
Right, if
we
it's
should,
not posted.
it's got to be posted before we can go, or we'll become caught up in the,
Right, the next
um,
complaint.
Maybe,
I think if it's an
Maybe our two
advisory,
chairs
it's
should-
different.
If you have members that are being appointed by the appointing authorities in both towns and it's doing something, I would say it needs to be posted and operate under the open
Because
meeting
it's
law.
appointed by the Board of
and
Selectmen
it's,
or because
and
of
it's a
whatever.
committee meeting regularly, regardless of who.
Because-
And making
There are,
recommendations, I mean, they're doing
Yeah, they have
significant
to-
work, that,
Yeah.
That's what we.
there are advisory committees that they do have that are just
But I think
superintendent
when in doubt,
advisory.
Post.
post it anyways.
That-
But
that-
It's
wouldn't
not,
this
you wouldn't be
advise
able
the
to.
school committee
There's
of-
like 6 of them, like, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to post and.
But if you have a
You just-
committee, somebody has to lead it. There's gotta be a chairperson.
And again, a committee needs to be organized, we can't just, this is what we're.
so I think this committee also needs to be organized.
It's
with
been a
with-
concern, we've
with-
been looking for the posting.
You and our chair to get this
I
one
just
on.
want to avoid, this open meeting law stuff is gonna get crazy. And so
I think
let's
it
avoid
needs to
it.
be done the same way that the advisory board is being
Yeah, agreed.
reorganized, because if this committee is gonna be making recommendations to the towns about infrastructure, facilities, et cetera, that would be my thought, is that they are subject to the open meeting law
And the public needs to know.
And the main,
and deserves to
And the
know.
public should be able to attend.
and they're appointed by boards that are
Those
subject
meetings.
to open meeting law,
Correct.
that, they're, like, it's an umbrella.
They're being
Yeah.
appointed
and
at a
every
meeting
person
subject to
appointed
open
to serve on such committee has got to understand they're equally liable for an open meeting law violation. It's not one person. If you've got a 6-member group and they didn't post and somebody files the complaint, all 6 people are responsible and could be held liable. So I think the good thing is we've got a solution tonight. We've got the committee already. We don't have to start over again. And it's just a matter of now, the 2 chairs calling the meeting, getting this thing organized, and we're good to go.
I want to thank the board, Rehoboth Board of Selectmen for attending our meeting. I want to thank other people from Rehoboth that have come to this meeting, and we look forward to meeting in Rehoboth in a few months.
And we thank the school committee as well.
Thank the school committee.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming.
What's this?
See you guys in 3 months.
Well done.
You auditioning for Castaway?
Yes, I'm going for.
I like it. Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Hey, Skip. Hey, is Mrs. Skip watching?
Oh, yeah, Mrs. Skip's on,
Okay.
you watch Nancy. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night, gentlemen.
No, we've got a full agenda. If you want to wait, we've got a full meeting.
Okay, so the next item, which was scheduled for 7:30, is the appointment of a new zoning board of appeals manager. And it's been a recommendation from our town administrator, as well as the chairman of the zoning board of appeals and the zoning board of appeals committee, that we hire Jonathan Gray for this position. Everybody had an opportunity to read the letters and to look at his resume?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I will happily make the motion to appoint Jonathan Gray to this position.
Is there a second?
Second, and under discussion, it's office manager, not manager, so we should say that, note that in the motion.
Zoning Board of Appeals Office Manager. Under discussion, I have a comment. He's laughing. I had the honor of actually attending 3 Eagle Courts of Honor. The first 2 were his brothers. Obviously, the last one was Jonathan's. And I remember saying that night, there was, you know, his brother that did the Winslow Davis House project, and then the brother that did the Segregated Schoolhouse. And I said, now we're down to the last Craig, who did the Broad Nature Trail. So the eaglet has landed. The last, the youngest one. Welcome aboard.
Well, I had the pleasure to serve with Jonathan on or Mr. Gray rather, on the Green Communities Grant Committee. So he helped us get a grant that we will be getting an update about later on in the meeting, which I think is timely. So I'm really excited to have you on board.
So in your letter of recommendation, it mentions $24 an hour, it's actually gonna be more than that.
It is more, it is $24.41, that's a typo. This is a union position, so the clerical union does determine the rate, and that is the rate for FY '20, $24.41 an hour.
Duly noted.
So is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, do you have any tales you can tell about this?
No, I don't. I am familiar with the Grays and the one that worked at the Winslow Davis Museum, who did a fantastic job. And the bench is still there. We still have the bench, the granite bench. And it was a lot of work, and I know you, the parents, did a lot of work also, so it was appreciated. And I'm familiar with Mr. Gray, and I'm very pleased to vote in the affirmative for his hiring. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Jonathan.
Congratulations.
You gotta come up here, we're gonna shake your hand.
Mr. Gray's start date's going to be January 27th, so he's hitting the ground running.
There's a ZBA meeting going on right now.
Yes, he,
Yes, I have
he did, he's doing a little double duty today. He did ask if he could leave one to come to the other, and I said, of course.
Thank you. And welcome aboard. You should be very proud of your son, all your sons, quite
We're
frankly.
proud of all of them, and now we have 3 daughters-in-law, so we're proud of them too.
And I will say, we met at Dayton Rehoboth Regional High School, so I'm very, very supportive of that region.
Matchmaker.
Well, Brett and I are alums, so we are too.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And use this as a resource if you have any questions. Also, Mrs. Grazi will be a big help as well, I'm sure.
And you'll be working downstairs with Carrie also.
That's right,
So,
that's right. He's got basically a team of people to help bring him aboard, so I know he's a quick learner. I myself was very impressed, and I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Gray on a variety of things. He's responsible for Dayton Trails as well, so you already have a long list of accomplishments here. And I'm excited to have somebody of his caliber in this position.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
The announcements. The Memorial Day Parade Planning Open Meeting is set for February 27, 2020, at 7 p.m. in the Old Town Hall, upper level. You interested in reading the,
Memorial Day?
yeah. This,
Okay, yeah. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, a group of residents got together with Don Hershey, the Veterans Agent, on January the 9th. And we wanted to get this information out to the public. So briefly, residents attended a meeting on January 9th called by Don Hershey, Veterans Agent, to discuss plans for this year's Memorial Day commemoration. We will no longer have a joint parade and ceremony with Rehoboth. We will return to Dayton holding its own ceremony. The theme for Memorial Day is duty, honor, and country, and we hope to have as many of our veterans in attendance. Memorial Day is the day when we recognize the sacrifices made by generations of Americans who served in our armed forces, many of whom gave their lives so we can enjoy the freedoms we have today. In order to make plans, we need to know how residents feel about having a parade followed by a ceremony at the Veterans Memorial Park. The parade would stage in the area around Elm Street and the police station and march to the park. If no parade is held, the program will be a ceremony at the park. Please contact either Don Hershey at 774-872-8255 508-662-0942, or the Selectmen's Office at 508-669-6431, option 1, to let us know if you would like to have the traditional Memorial Day parade followed by the ceremony at the park, or if you would like to eliminate the parade and just have a ceremony. Please respond by February 14th so we can continue planning. We invite interested residents and organizations to attend the next meeting scheduled for February 27th, 7 p.m. at the Old Town Hall, upper level. Thank you.
Thank you for writing that for us, too.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The Town of Dayton Food Bank distribution will be held next on February 15, 2020, located in the Town Hall, lower level. I believe it's at 8 o'clock.
Can I read one thing about that I got from a Lions Club
Yes.
member? So I did have a Dayton Lions Club member reach out. It's apparent to me that they might have some specific needs, and so they are mayonnaise, rice, mustard, ketchup, relish, spaghetti sauce, cereal, toilet paper, paper towels, canned white potatoes, pancake mix, and syrup. And you can drop them off in the lower level of Town Hall.
And there's already some stuff. I went down there earlier.
I dropped some
ketchup
stuff
and-
off
okay.
earlier.
And mustard.
I'm sorry, is there a key, or do we just leave it outside the,
We just,
so it was
Do we have,
locked,
a-
so
do we
I
have a
couldn't-
key up here that we can? Okay, so we,
Okay, perfect. Perfect, thank you.
and early voting for the presidential primary is, the primary is March 3rd, 2020. Early voting will begin on February 24th, 2020, and continue through February 27th for the presidential primary being held on March 3rd, 2020. To be eligible to vote in the March 3rd presidential primary, you must be a registered voter or make any necessary changes to your voter registration by February 12th, 2020. In Dayton, early voting can be done in person at Dayton Town Hall, lower level, 979 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass., during the following dates and times: February 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th, 7:30 to 4:30 p.m. Please note, however, once a voter has cast an early voting ballot, the voter may no longer vote at the polls on election day, so you only get one vote per person. And this is from
Seems fair.
Superintendents, yeah, it kind of seems fair.
And you can't erase it.
You can't erase it. And so, all those people who wish to vote early, I'm one of those, come to the town hall and cast your ballot, and it would be appreciated.
Less lines.
Less lines. The public input. Do we have any public input? You want to come up here, Mr. Berry?
So, these announcements on the website and whatnot, and you guys were announcing earlier in the season about a parking ban throughout the winter, November 1st through April 1st. It's working okay. I think people are waiting for it to be necessary to move vehicles and asked to move the vehicles. And I like to emphasize that really puts a strain when we have to have two cruisers go out, move vehicles, while snow plow operations are beginning, and that's usually the time when the roads are deteriorating. So that could delay responses and whatnot. So some common sense needs to be there. Don't wait for that. Don't wait for the tickets. It just compromises things. So I think I'm asking for the public to get involved and use a little bit more common sense there. We have anywhere from 8 to 12 cars on different events, and that's a timely fashion.
Yeah, we have made that announcement at the past meetings, but maybe we should continue making that announcement. Appreciate you coming in here.
Okay.
And by the way, you did a great job the last snowstorm that we had,
Thank you.
and the roads are very good. I went to another town, I won't mention their name, but
You
roads
knew
are-
you crossed the border.
Yes.
Mr. Ferry, is it always the same neighborhood, or is it sporadic around town?
Both.
Oh.
It's usually the same culprits. I think they're testing the system. But once in a while, maybe people have forgot or whatever. But for whatever reason, it's just, maybe they don't realize it's compromising. It could be compromising in response for something else,
Yep.
so.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Maybe we can put it on the agenda until April, whenever the parking ban is up.
April 1st. It's November 1st to April 1st.
Just as an
It's a
announcement,
bylaw.
I mean, not as a review discuss. No discussion there.
Any other public input? If not, we'll go to the town administrator's report.
I have the pleasure to report that we received $277,000, $277,442 for complete streets. We've applied for this twice, so a second time was a charm for us. We will be focused, these funds will be focused on the Center Street sidewalks that we've discussed previously, Pearl Street, and bicycle signage throughout town. Thank you to Mr. Ferry for his work. Much of the hard work was done before I even arrived here in our prioritization plan, and these are projects 1 and 2. The bike signage was a little bit lower down, but projects 1 and 2 on our prioritization plan. So that's exciting news, and you will be very busy this summer. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Green Communities is going well, and some kudos go to Mrs. Brady, who's been managing this project for us. She applied for our National Grid rebates, and the town's receiving about $29,000 in return for us to install 2 electric vehicle charging stations. There will be 1 at Old Town Hall and 1 at Town Hall. They will be there for public use, but this is great news for us because we're getting almost all of the project reimbursed totally through National Grid. And more great news, the company we're going to use is on the state bid list, so we plan to get going right away as soon as we have specs for our pads to place them on.
So one thing about that to my colleagues was my question, so we needed a little bit of clarification from the regional coordinator, and that's because we designated out of the grant funds $20,000 for the electrical charging stations for 2 of them, but we're getting a rebate for $29,000. So I guess my question was, and you had a question as well, is that the town's money to use on other energy improvement projects? Do we give that to the state? I think we both agree you probably don't give it back to Mass DOER, but we will get clarification on that. But if it is money that we can use on other projects, then as you know, we wanted to do the windows, replace windows and things like that. So there will be other things, hopefully more to come on that.
If you're asking for my opinion, I don't want to return it to the state.
Yeah, no,
Well, hopefully not, if it's a
I've never heard
mandate.
of returning grant money
But
back
I
to.
agree, we need to know what we can do with
Yeah.
that fund.
Right.
the funds.
But this truly isn't grant, this is a rebate, so
So
that's
this is a
different rules.
rebate, right, so this
So
is a rebate.
Different rules, but I agree. Just for the
Public.
information, where will they be located, those stations?
So one will be right here at
Right in the
Town
back.
Hall, and then one at Old Town
Yeah.
Hall.
Okay, and I would assume, because we're still under that to 3-year,
It's
the
lower
rate will
cost,
be the
yes.
low rate that everyone else is
Yes.
paying.
And we should be clear that for public use, you swipe a card and it charges you. The town doesn't pick up everybody's charging, but you're right, the rate is lower. Even lower than the aggregate that everybody in the town has had the option, so.
So if I had an electric vehicle, I would plug into the unit and swipe the card, and it would
And it
charge
would
until
charge
it's
ya.
fully charged? Is that how it
Or
works?
however long you wanna
However-
leave it, yeah, if you're doing,
Money's tight, you might just want to do half a charge, I don't know.
maybe you have a long meeting,
Yes, I don't know.
so,
Okay,
yep, so it'll be available.
I think it's great.
That is fantastic,
It is
and
great.
big shout out to Highway, Mr. Ferry, and Mr. Aguirre, the building department, are working hard on that. And thank you, Mrs. Brady and Mrs. Aaronstein as well.
And my last item is just an announcement. I've been talking about this municipal vulnerability preparedness plan for quite some time. So the public forum on this and our hazard mitigation plan is going to take place at our regularly scheduled Selectmen's meeting on February 12th at 7 p.m. We're going to try to keep the rest of the meeting light, and I hope you attend if you're interested in weighing in or just hearing about it. But basically what this plan does, if you don't know, we will be highlighting areas in which we could improve in order to ward off any risk we may face from climate change, weather-related events, flooding, extreme heat, so if we needed a cooling center, generators, things like that. So it really runs the gamut, and I hope you attend and find some value out of it. And that is my report.
Thank you. Old business, third reading of the hiring policy and accept. Did you request a change do you remember?
The only thing I mentioned was bonding.
Bonding
that was-
requirements if applicable.
Yeah,
If
that
applicable.
was,
Did we not make it in?
That was you know, I was, I was looking at this and I thought, you know what, this is something none of us have thought of. When we talk about a number of our policies that relate to personnel, we say that the treasurer collector will be the person who has the records. That should be stricken collector. The only person is the treasurer. That is not a combined job, and so in all of our policies, I know, you know, the policies are fine, but we need to strike collector because it's a separate position, and a tax collector, if it weren't the same person, really the person holding those records is the town treasurer. She just happens to have both titles. But we should eliminate the reference to the collector, because they're not the personnel custodian, let me put it that way.
So we can amend this one here before us.
Yeah,
Yep, we'll just, where there is town treasurer / town collector, we'll strike town collector. And mostly that's on page 6.
as I said, I chuckled when I read it, because I thought, oh, none of us picked that up.
Okay,
And how many policies have we gone through?
A lot.
right?
Although there's only a couple that really highlight her
Yeah.
role, so.
Very.
Yeah, but we always put those together
Yeah.
because it's always been one person that's held them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that is a good point. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the hiring policy with the amendments presented by Selectman Goulart this evening.
Second?
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
We'll
First,
change- Oh, I was just gonna say, we'll change that and have that for your
Sure.
signature on your desk.
I'm going to entertain a motion to table the first reading of committee appointments policy.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Why are we gonna table it?
We have,
Well, actually, you can't discuss it because you're gonna table it, I'm sorry. All right, forget the question.
yeah. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. So I'm going to be asking for some other stuff to be tabled because we're going to be going into executive session earlier. We
Okay.
have some people coming, is that at 8:30 maybe?
I
Is that-
told them between 8:30 and 9.
Yeah, so we want to
I didn't wanna be too optimistic.
kind of go through some of this stuff a little quicker than we normally would have. I'm also going to ask that on the new business that we table, on the new business, A and B. I'll entertain a motion to,
Can't we just, it's only gonna take a second.
well, it was suggested that this is one of the things that we would table, so.
It's
I mean,
not-
honestly, I
It's not
thought the
gonna save
Rehoboth
us
Board
any
of
time.
Selectmen, we're doing it right now, but I thought that meeting, the joint meeting was gonna take a lot longer than
Okay.
it did.
Like, I
so.
get the appointments policy, because we'd have to read that in several pages, but
Yeah, okay, so I take that back.
I make well, the first one involves you, so I want
Yes.
to make sure you're okay. I make a motion that we appoint Kenneth Pacheco to the ADA Commission as a non-voting associate member.
Second?
Can you, designate the year, the term, so we've got the 3, the 2, and the 1, because it's a new committee, the term.
I don't have it in front of me. Do you have a recommendation for what the term should be for this? Because I can't do it
Honestly,
if I don't
because
have
it's
it in front of me.
non-voting, I would say 1, but it's up to you guys, really.
Ex-
Why don't we
Expiring
make it through
2020.
the appointments in June? We'll finish out this year,
Yeah,
and then we'll
that's
make
fine.
it for an annual
That's what I was
appointment.
gonna say by default. For a term ending fiscal year 2020.
Second? Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Jocelyn Tavares to the ADA Commission for a term.
This could be a 3, right? Could be
Yeah.
a 3.
Yes, I
Yep.
just said because it was a non-voting, that's all.
And the board could change, so I'm okay with that.
I don't need
For a
that.
3-year term expiring 2023.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to appoint Rachel Began to the Dayton Trails Committee.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, for a
Second.
term expiring fiscal year 2020.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Congratulations.
I'll entertain a motion to appoint a member to the Dayton Rehoboth Regional School District Facilities Committee, and I would,
We had 1 volunteer, and it's Jessie Bierman, who I think is actually totally suitable because she served on the study committee previously.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Jesse Bierman to the Dayton-Rehoboth Regional School District Facilities Committee with a term expiring fiscal year 2020.
Second.
Any discussion?
I will be asking Mr. Kitchen if he posted that, just so we're aware.
Yeah, yes, okay. I truly support this. She was very active in getting the 6 modules for the elementary school, so I think she's a perfect person for this.
Well, she's also a Montessori teacher as well, so she has some expertise, which will be good for the committee, I think.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Review the dates for the department head meeting. Everybody had an opportunity to look at those dates?
I did, Mr. Chairman. May I make a comment on it?
Sure.
Very briefly. I really appreciated this as someone who, I know we mostly have consistent department head meetings. I know it's a certain Wednesday, I believe, of every month. I really appreciated this. I think I might be able to possibly attend a couple, so whoever prepared this, Selectman Goulart, I'm sure Mrs. Brady had a hand as well.
Oh, she
I really
prepared it. I
appreciated
just
this.
suggested it.
Well, it was a good suggestion, and maybe we can do this, every year going
So
forward.
I want us to do it when we do your meeting schedule. I mean, we ended up doing the whole year because it's easy enough, but we'll know now.
Is this something we're gonna circulate to the actual
Yes.
department heads?
Yep.
Yes, because sometimes they're notified of the department head meeting like a couple days beforehand,
Yeah.
and some have already got other plans and everything else, so I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, I think this will be good for everyone, so kudos. I really appreciated it. I know others do as well.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the department head meeting dates from January through December of 2020,
Second.
as presented.
So these dates will be posted also for the Board of Selectmen meeting also, because more than one may be attending.
I'll make sure it gets on the website.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. The next agenda item, I'm going to give to Dr. Z.
So, disclaimer, I forwarded this to the board. It wasn't something that, I was sending to my colleagues with a specific preference. It's regarding School Choice Week. I believe we had adopted, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Administrator, a similar proclamation back in 2017.
Yes.
I don't know, I think maybe it just fell off the radar in 2018 or 2019. So it's before us this evening. The board has done it before, so we do have sort of a prior precedent. School Choice Week in Dayton would be January 26th through February 1st, 2020, if we were to adopt it. And I will just briefly read the proclamation, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. Dayton School Choice Week. Whereas all children in Dayton should have access to the highest quality education possible, and whereas Dayton recognizes the important role that an effective education plays in preparing all students in Dayton to be successful adults, and whereas quality education is critically important to the economic vitality of Dayton, and whereas Dayton is home to a multitude of high-quality public and non-public schools from which parents can choose for their children, in addition to families who educate their children in the home. One point, do we have non-public, I guess, do preschools count?
Why not?
Okay. Whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhances the vibrancy of our community. And whereas Dayton has many high-quality teaching professionals in all types of school settings who are committed to educating our children, and whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise awareness of the need for effective educational options, now, therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, do hereby recognize January 26th through February 1st, 2020 as Dayton School Choice Week, and we call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens, and their signature lines for the 3 members of the board.
So I'll entertain a motion that we approve this proclamation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Review and discuss commission intent to purchase 5 acres adjacent to Broad Cove.
Do you want to read the letter, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, I'll read it.
Mhm.
Thank you. This is to the Town of Dayton Conservation Department. Conservation Department has come to my attention that your department is interested in purchasing a piece of land we own at 0 County Street, Dayton, Mass., which contains approximately 5 acres of land. The property is recorded as book number 1993, page number 85, tax bill number 10269, and parcel ID number 024, looks like a dot, 0-0-0048-0000.0. Even though this property has been deemed a buildable lot in town by a design engineer, we will be willing to sell this to the Dayton Conservation Commission to keep an open conservation space for the amount of $20,000. If the town decides to go through with the purchase, it will be the town's responsibility to draft up the required purchase and sales documents for the property transfer, and also be responsible for the attorney's fees, if any, associated with this purpose. This is from Jeff Simons.
So, Mr. Chairman, is this on the agenda? Are we going to maybe give a what
That's
our
my
thoughts are?
understanding.
They're just
Cons-
notifying
conservation?
you, so the Conservation Commission has the ability to purchase land
Yes.
without going to town meeting. You do not,
Mhm.
so I would just acknowledge this, that they're doing it. Personally, I think this is a great acquisition for the town.
Absolutely.
I will be working with them so that we can follow Chapter 30B, Section 16, about acquiring unique properties, and just so everyone's aware, what makes us unique is that it connects other parcels that we own, and also that Broad Cove Nature Trail, which was previously discussed,
Yeah.
that works with this. And additionally, I know the town of Somerset is working on a trail that would connect, and this is a significant piece for that. So it really is the trifecta. And so I appreciate Mr. Simons approaching the town for this.
If, so it sounds like it might be.
Conservation Commission.
I'm really bad at geography, but it sounds like this is going to be maybe contiguous with other pieces of land that are in that area that the town owns?
That the town owns, yes. And it's
So-
also abuts Somerset. So when they come in with their trail, we'll be able to continue it and
Is that what
connect
the
our
plan
pieces.
is?
That's my
That's my
understanding.
understanding. yeah.
If
Doc-
anything changes, would you let
Of course.
us know?
Dr. Z, when you go down and cross into just before you cross into Somerset on the left, going south, there's a turnaround. That's
Yes.
part of it.
Okay, I
Okay.
know exactly where it is.
That's part of
She knew
it.
exactly the
I know,
landmark.
and it's
that
so
way.
beautiful. I've noticed in that area that there's our stone walls dividing. Did anyone ever live there, even way back, like?
It was
how did they-
farmland.
It was farmland, okay.
They used to cut the hay out there for strawberries, didn't they?
Yes. So just past that turnaround, there's another stone wall, I don't know if that's the one you saw. The end of that stone wall is one of your perambulation rocks. It's got the S and the D on it and the dates.
It is. It's a good piece.
To the founding of the town?
Yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's water there now, as before, I guess assume when it was farmed, the water level wasn't as high. Is that,
Right, and that's what she said from Save the Bay, that the marshes are basically reclaiming their territory, which is exciting
Yeah.
because usually we hear about it eroding or going away, but here in Diane, it's not doing
You can
that.
actually see, I'll call it good green grass out there. But when the tide is really high, of course, it comes right up to the road, so everything is underwater. But,
Very interesting.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we acknowledge the purchase of 5 acres of land as described from Mr. Simons by the Conservation Commission in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
That's fabulous.
Finalize the budget overseen by the Board of Selectmen. So we have a few budget items to discuss.
So I'm seeking your votes on this so that we can send them along and put them in the master budget document, and then you'll begin your budget review for the whole town. Budgets are due on budgets are due on the 31st, so a vote tonight keeps us in line with that schedule.
So we should go through these individually then.
Yes. Some of them you've already agreed to do level
Right.
funded, but there was no vote taken, so.
So we're going to be on time for our budget preparation timetable,
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first one is the town meetings, and this is what we paid the salaries for the checkers for town meetings, and that has gone up a little bit, only because minimum wage has gone up, and we
Right.
are in agreement.
Same with off-duty police, police details.
That's
I
gone up.
increased that very slightly, or recommended to, because they have an increase due contractually.
So is there any discussion on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Department 113 as presented, the budget for Department 113 as presented for FY '21.
Is there a s-
second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. Board of Selectmen's budget.
Can I make one, so when this digital copy,
I know it-
can we have it be not sideways? Because I'm literally breaking my neck. Thank you. No, it's just a small change for us internally.
Well, I'm having the same problem,
No,
and
'cause then
also,
it
it
keeps
will
turning
keep turning. And the
It's
other
so
problem
annoying.
is, on this one, I forgot to get rid of the fill, so we can barely see the numbers. I
But you
apologize,
know
but I
I'm-
feel your
But you
pain.
know I'm an old curmudgeon, so it's like a principal thing, so I still refuse to print it out. But
And for those of us that are non-electronic, we
You
like
have no problem at all, right?
this is the one time you have an advantage.
If you hold it
we're
upside down, maybe it
non-electronic.
works.
Chico.
So the
Oh,
second
damn.
budget item is the Board of Selectmen's.
Yes. So I also included in here, at the last meeting, we discussed adding hours to our part-time staff, and I messed this up. Adding hours to our part-time staff. So included in your packet is a notice from Mrs. Brady, who did a wonderful job talking about what Leanne's accomplished during her time with us, what we hope to give her with these extra hours. We did not have trouble finding projects. And then I gave you, a couple pages after that, I gave you what I call scenarios. I estimated the weeks. It's 52 weeks in a couple of days, so I just did 5.5 to estimate high. But I broke it down with what she would receive as a 2% increase in varying hours, so you can see the difference. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but we do need to make the decision tonight.
So my comments would be, thank you for sort of following that template that the Board of Health had presented with
That's a good one.
what we've accomplished, what we still need to do. What is considered full-time? Is it 30 hours?
35.
35?
And honestly, I think 30 hours is appropriate as well.
I
I
asked
don't
that
want-
because of like, in corporate world,
Right.
30 hours triggers benefits, but she was already,
She's already benefited
Yeah,
at
20
20.
hours,
Yes,
yeah.
so there's no change
19,
there.
Anything over 19.
19 and a half, I think, 19 and a half.
I wasn't, I just meant I wasn't making like we should try 30 hours. I was just wondering what full-time is for a town. Okay.
I'm not in favor of increasing the hours to 35 hours. She's just recently been appointed, she's been working for a couple of months, she's doing an excellent job. But I just think it's too early to decide that this should be a full-time position. Right now, it's catch-up of stuff that wasn't able to be done in the past, we're catching up on minutes and other stuff. I would not be opposed to increasing the hours, but I can't support going from 20 to 35 hours.
Do you have a specific number in mind?
I was thinking, I know this is broken down in 5-hour increments, but she works 4 days, so I was thinking an extra hour each day, which would be 4 hours. If it's 5 hours, that would be an extra hour and 15 minutes each day, or she'd be working one day a little longer. I'm not sure how you would
Well,
want
we
to do
can
it.
figure that, we can configure the schedule,
So-
but
You
what is
actually
that,
think of it
24
much
hours?
more complicated than I do. So the way I thought, no, and I don't mean it in like a pejorative way. The way I thought about it, because I go to the easiest way possible. I'm thinking, for me, I'm okay with 25 hours, and then it's just 5 hours a day for 4 days.
Yeah.
What were
No,
you saying?
5 hours a day for 4 days is 20 hours. That's what she does.
Oh my God,
Yes.
my math was off. Oh my God. Okay, so then
So
I
it
would
would
agree
be
with
six, it would be,
kind of
if it's
an
4
extra
hours,
hour a day.
it's 6 hours a day for 4 days.
you. Yeah.
But I'm not opposed to 24 or 25. I don't want to go any more than that. Do you have any comments, Mrs. Goulart?
Yeah, at the last meeting, you and I were looking at 20 hours. Quite frankly, I'm not interested in increasing this any, simply because when Mrs. Brady was hired, we didn't have a town administrator. When we hired a town administrator, she was going to be 50-50. That hasn't happened. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen. I look at this list, there isn't one thing on here that would help me do anything with my workload. I practically have to get permission to get something done in the Board of Selectmen's office. So, until I can see and have a chance to sit down and talk about help I should have, I should be training people to do the things that I am doing. I started doing as a selectman because we didn't have staff. We have hired staff. Mrs. Brady's workload was overwhelming. We split off the Board of Health. It was still overwhelming. I've got absolutely no assistance, and now we have both a half-time person, and as far as I'm concerned, we lost half of Mrs. Brady. People have got to realize the work I'm doing is not normally done by a selectman. It's a carryover because we didn't have staff. So I would like to have some input on if we're going to increase staff hours. I can give you a litany. When we talked about the stormwater manager I said, I would like to have an extra hour for the stormwater. That's strictly to do stormwater. But there are things that I'm doing for this town that should be brought into this building, and somebody who's not, gets elected and could leave and whatever, somebody who is a permanent person should learn how to do this, whether it's easements, whether it's land taking. You're certainly not going to hire a lawyer to do it because it costs too much money. And I can teach somebody this. It's that important to the town. So that's my position. I won't support additional hours until I can see that I'm going to get some help. Help, and it's helping this town.
So if we do increase the hours, are we able to accommodate the request of Mrs. Goulart?
I think of course. I mean, this is just to give you an idea of what we would do, but if you wanted, I mean, I guess I'm a little confused, so stormwater, I feel like is Board of Health, but if you want us to do more of that.
No, I'm not looking to bring that in. We have a committee, we got a person
Right.
to do minutes, and
So
I asked for an
that's
extra
stormwater.
hour.
The easements, I wanted to be a part of, like you did teach me how to do it. Like
Well,
I
you
went
sat
to
in on a meeting,
yeah,
right,
a couple
right.
meetings, so I'm willing to take that on. I mean, I certainly don't want you thinking that I'm not here to assist you, because I am.
Rather
That's part of
than
the role.
add time right now, I would like to be given part of the time that's already allocated in this office. I don't want to add more time and say, okay, now you will provide a few hours a week, whatever, to Mrs. Goulart, because she's going to teach you this process. No, what I'm saying is, I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm thinking, where is there any assistance here? I see us adding time, and I might get a couple of hours here and there. What I'm looking to do is to teach somebody this. Now, once they learn it, we don't do this every day. It just so happens we've had a number of projects, one right after the other. So they will be, I think, going forward, sporadic. But we got a big one right now. This would be a good one to teach people on. We got Somerset Avenue and Pearl Street, where there's land taking and easements. This is a good time to teach somebody on what has to be done, right through the process of everything's done, the order of taking is written by the town council, and it comes to the Board of Selectmen, gets voted, and gets recorded. The end, over and done with. It's that important. I think somebody should learn this.
So I'm in
Can I ask a question? No, I didn't mean it like that.
No, you go first.
So, is your position, if the town administrator takes this on, like you sit together and so you won't support the additional hours because then it doesn't require like an administrative assistant in the office to assist and learn that?
Land taking and easements, whether it's a bridge or a sidewalk, is a project. It has a beginning and an end. That's why I don't want to add hours. the ideal thing is, I would like some hours from somebody, whether it's Mrs. Brady or Mrs. Kerwin, who will actually work with me. One of the important things about this, there is actually a lot of, I'll call it clerical work. I do the paperwork for this. I can teach somebody this. I can teach them how Mr. Ferry is sitting here. I can teach them what we call the, he handles the, I'll call it the project, the technical stuff. This is what we're gonna do when we start digging, all right? I handle the other side of that, which brings it up to the point of him being able to do that. Explaining to them what it is we're going to do. He explains the plan, the process, the plans and the project. I explain the process, because the process has to be explained and paid for first. That's where all the paperwork comes from on my end, okay? The real technical stuff,
So I think I understand better. So I think what the office staff would say is that we don't have the capacity right now to dedicate Mrs. Brady or Mrs. Kerwin to that. And I'm not saying it needs to be done. I agree with you, and we need. So would you support extra hours if some of those extra hours would be for that person to learn this and assist with these projects?
quite frankly, I look at this list of stuff and I say, we don't need somebody doing all this stuff. It helps Mrs. Brady, but I'm looking at this saying, quite frankly, I believe there's a way to share this stuff. Carve out some time from the existing 20 hours, because this is a project. It's already been started. I'm gonna work with this person on it, and it's gonna end. This person, whoever's gonna be doing this with me, will then, when the next one comes along, I hope is going to be able to say, okay, we're gonna do a sidewalk. I can look back at the one I did. And they're not gonna be tied up all the time, but I don't wanna add hours now, because I'm saying to you, the help I need now is to deal with this now. It's gonna go away eventually. And then that person can return to what would be a shared from this list. That's what I'm saying.
So my intent in asking to sit in on those and work with you on that was to learn it. I share that. Like, you shouldn't have to do it all. I think I agree with you wholeheartedly that it needs to be passed on. That was my intent, to work with you on that, and I'm feeling very badly here that you think that, that you felt that you couldn't ask for assistance. I don't want you to feel that way at all, so I just want that out there, but.
No, from a town administrator point, learning it to provide oversight. I don't see you doing the clerical part of this. I'm doing the entire thing.
Well, and that's
you would direct.
That's my
right,
point.
But the other thing is, everything we do is really a collaborative team effort. Like, we all work together to get everything done. We put these together because it would take some workload off of Karen, and she would then be able to do that. Like, we're kind of trying some things out with grant administration. That's why she's working on green communities. So we're doing a little bit and basically testing it out. She's flourishing. She's doing great. So I want to keep that going. So we thought if we took some of these cyclical things, appointments, licensing, things that come up all the time and there's adequate training for, if Leanne could do those, things that aren't necessarily time sensitive, that you can fit in a certain parameters, Karen would be freed up to do some of these other long-term projects. So I share that same
And
thought.
to your point, they're cyclical, and that's what I'm saying. Projects come and go, all right? If we didn't have the Complete Streets thing right now that we're working on, we'd probably have a lull, because we just finished Miller's Lane, and all we need is the order of taking.
Another one, too. Another one for you, Nancy.
And like you said, appointments and stuff, if,
They're
like
not
the
time
annual, they
sensitive,
come up. So it's not a constant every day, every week. So what I'm saying is, you have, I'll call it a space or a downtime between projects, okay? That person could be doing this stuff, and I believe they could be doing it within the hours we're looking at. And I thought last time we discussed the budget, we were looking to go through the end of this fiscal year, the way it is. That's gonna give us some good time to actually measure this.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody has got to learn this.
I agree with you.
that important?
I agree, because
I agree.
we're here temporarily,
Exactly.
and they're gonna be here longer than we're
Right.
gonna be here, so I'm, term limits. So So I hear what you're saying, and I definitely think we ought to devote some of the time to work on these projects. However, they're asking, they're saying that they're overwhelmed with work now because they got other stuff that taking on new stuff. In addition, you're asking for more of their time. So I'm still in favor of increasing the hours, not to 35, 4 hours or 5 hours a week, I'm in favor of.
And you know what, and that's exactly where I fall on it. And to Selectman Goulart's point, I'm glad she raised this evening, is because, as you know, Mrs. Brady, before Mrs. Kerwin came on, became the executive assistant, Mrs. Kerwin became the administrative assistant, and if this is something that we want someone in the office who's not elected to be in charge of, I feel comfortable having that individual, and I'm not volunteering you, we can still discuss this, having that person be Mrs. Brady, because I would consider this as something that's helping the executive branch with these easements and the land takings.
That's my
et
point
cetera.
about oversight. I'm doing the whole thing now because there's nobody else to do it. And this is a carryover from the first bridge project, because when I was a liaison, not even a selectman, I took on the whole thing. And I've continued to do it because we had nobody and I knew how to do it, so you just keep doing it. But it is clear to me, there has to be a permanent, long-term employee that can learn this and do this, at least until Mr. Ferry retires, right, Mr. Ferry? He's chuckling. But we have the project and we have the person who's solid employee, long-term, knows what's going on. We need the other part of it that gets the whole project going.
But I would also like the town administrator to sit in and you both to kind of work on that process and then pass on your wisdom and knowledge. And so you also can do that from start to finish as well. You may already know, so I don't mean to be
Well,
speaking
she's
about
a
it
good good
like
teacher.
that.
I mean, I picked up quite a bit. I asked questions. Nancy, Selectman Goulart always answers them. I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I think I wouldn't.
We've never had a problem either. We've never had anyone say it's not enough money and I'm gonna sue. Well, we got a solution to that too. But it's just, Mr. Ferry and I have worked on this, well, I worked on this before the Berkeley-Dighton Bridge, in the very, very early stages of that, and that's when Mr. Ferry came on. So that was our big project, and it's just continued. So we know, working together, how to get this done. And what I'm saying is, Mr. Ferry's gonna be here hopefully for quite a while for the next few projects, and he's gonna know that there's somebody that is gonna be a permanent employee, because we've talked about these things before. The temporary positions that elected officials hold. You know, not everyone's gonna be around for 33 years like Mr. McKeon, and that was 33 elections, which is amazing.
So so I'm in favor of 4 hours. Could we adjust this? You know, I know we haven't voted on it yet, but
Well,
adjust the
it'll be
budget.
less than whatever I calculated out for 25. So slightly less than $32,000,
Okay.
somewhere
I support-
somewhere around there.
It's about 13,000
I'm not
less.
being nitpicky, I just think, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, 24, because then it's just an extra hour for those 4 days. And I just want, my colleagues to know that
24
I'm open to this evolving, and I know, just like it took a while for the Board of Selectmen to figure out the relationship with the role of the town administrator, having an administrative assistant and now an executive assistant, I do understand that things will evolve and adjust, so, I think we're open-minded to that too.
Are there any other changes to this budget?
So what's the number?
Is there a calculator on this? It would be 2448 times 24 times 52 and a half.
I love how you look at me like I'm literally doing the math as you.
I just lost my packet. Oh, don't touch anything, Mallory. Times 24 times 52 and a half. So $30,844.80.
Could you repeat that?
$30,844.80.
That replaces the 44,
Yes.
982.
82?
Yep.
And again, I just want everyone to know, that was there for illustrative purposes and not that I was presuming anything.
Right. So it's approximately 14,000 less.
14, yes, 14,142? Nope, I'm backwards.
No, 38.
38.
So are there any other questions about the budget, the Board of Selectmen's budget?
I did decrease that professional technical line. I don't know if you want to look at that, but,
No, I'm okay with that.
okay. Next, moving on. Town council, I believe you agreed to level fund from last meeting?
So shouldn't we be voting
Oh,
on?
yes, sorry.
I'll entertain a motion with the adjustment for the Board of Selectmen's budget.
So moved, with the proposed amendments.
Yep. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
I'm going to record me as abstaining, please, for that one line item.
The next is the Town Council, and it's level funded. If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Department
151.
151, I'm sorry, the account threw me off. Department 151's budget as presented this evening.
Second?
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Data processing,
Data processing, I was able to get the figures from the accountant, assessor, and treasurer collector, so that's filled in here, and it's more than obviously what you previously saw. And that's all I have to say. Sorry.
Does it, oh, I'm sorry.
is it less than what we saw or more?
No, it's more, because I had the treasurer collector and the accountant and the assessor's figures
Oh, I
was
see,
not
yes,
filled in.
yes, I see it. Yep. Any questions about that?
This may actually go down because I believe Selectman Zografis did negotiate a lower rate for revise. So as we go through the process, we'll finalize that.
So is the number in here, so Revise is the the vendor that allows us to host our website on their platform. Is this amount with,
It includes all of our certificates and subscriptions for servers and backups that are recurring annual costs. So it looks much higher than what you know to be the revise number.
but my question is so FY20 budget made sense that you would request 8,000 because at that time we were paying like 4,600 a year for the website, but in the fifth year it's only $2,200. So can't we lower it by at least 2,000 and just do 6,000?
Right, that's what I just meant. Like, I don't have the figure in my head, so I'm uncomfortable just saying, yep, lower it,
It's
but,
2,200.
okay.
So it's 2,300 or 400 lower than what we thought. So I would feel comfortable doing 6,000 and then reducing, so instead of $60,406.28 for this budget, it would be $58,406.28.
So that,
58,000.
would that be sprinkled out here and there?
No, it's just that one line, because that's where.
Yeah, it's
Which line?
5304. So you see how it
Website
says
support fees, yeah.
8,000?
That's only going to be two?
No,
No.
it's gonna be 5,800.
We're reducing it by 2,000 because it's about
Oh, that's going to be
$2,600
six.
less.
All right, that's going to be 6,000.
Yeah, so the website, to do it in the fourth and fifth year, it's half the price of what it was in the
Okay.
first 4 years, so. So the total would be $58,406.28.
Okay.
$58,406.28.
Yep.
Thank you.
And that's just because we know the website's gonna be cheaper. I still don't know about all the other fees.
Those
I get
are
that. that varies.
Website fees and server backup fees and all sorts of good stuff.
Thank you for bringing that to mind. I had forgotten about that.
I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Department 155's budget for a total amount of $58,406.28.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes
Oh,
have
it
it.
still went down though, okay, so that's fabulous.
Public buildings and property maintenance.
I have one line here that I'm watching for this current fiscal year, which is the line 5230. So I may, depending on the next few months, how that goes, request an increase at some point, but I'm just watching it right now. That's our non-energy bills, water and things like that.
I have a question, you can stop me if it's like completely unrelated. So if down the line, that facilities building, maintenance building gets built on the schools, where would things like, would that affect this budget at all, or would that come out of the
No,
school's
that's a
budget?
school, that would be a school,
Like how it's operated and
Right,
everything?
right.
Okay. Thank you.
and I'm assuming a school capital expense request.
Is there any questions?
I have no further questions.
If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
One thing I will say about that budget though, Mr. Chairman, is that it looks like it's held pretty close to level funding year to year, even though we kind of added facilities management to the building commissioner's title, so I think that's
Oh, I know.
fabulous.
Last meeting, we discussed those school warning lights.
Mhm.
Are we gonna get rid of those?
So I'm gonna keep that line in there, just in case, but it's on my radar to talk about, because if they're not working, why are we
And even
doing
the
anything?
location is not appropriate, there's no
Right.
school.
So-
One other question I just thought of. In all of these public buildings and properties, does this include anything for the new animal shelter? If we need to do anything up there?
Sort of in an umbrella way, that 40,000.
Okay.
It's encompassing of all town facilities.
All right, yep, that's okay.
Although that should be, I don't even want to tempt
Although we
fate,
got
I'm not gonna
We
say
got a
it.
dog shelter, we got a piddly amount after that, $1,000. That's,
So I just carry that over, because I'm not actually sure what that's for,
I think it was
considering we
when
would
we had
be covered.
just a little building, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
at the transfer station. But do we really need that now, since the 40,000 is all encompassing?
We just approved this budget, though.
We can go back and amend.
Well, we'll make a note and take it out. It was a new request for FY '20, so, but they didn't spend it. It probably went in before we realized we were getting that money, though, too.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, oh no, wait a minute, I voted, how do you reconsider? Is it the
Move to
first and the
any
second?
of you who can do it, because
Oh,
you've
we
all
voted. All
voted
right,
in the
Mr. Chairman,
affirmative.
I move to reconsider the vote on the public buildings and property maintenance that we just took.
Is
Second.
there a second?
Okay,
Discussion?
okay, now there's a vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we eliminate the $1,000 under line 5253 for building repairs and maintenance for the dog shelter.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Building insurance, I see. This is insurance for all of our buildings, all town buildings.
Wait, do we have to reapprove the budget?
You just did, I thought.
No, I thought that was just to reassess that one line. I may have
No.
totally missed that.
We deleted it from the budget, so I can amend that and just say the total budget now is
Yep.
$162,400.
Yep.
So do you want another motion, or we're okay?
Friendly amendment,
Mhm.
is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
We're all set.
Insurance for all, so this is insurance for all the buildings then, right?
Yes.
So it's been reduced. There was some question
I
whether.
reduced it by 5 because I felt comfortable doing that.
Even with, so, is the new animal shelter on the insurance?
Yeah, well, once it's open and ready to go, yes. But the old animal shelter was on
Is-
the insurance,
Do
so
we expect that it, because it's bigger, it should?
not that big of
Okay.
a, no. Same liability, you know.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve budget, Department 193's budget as presented this evening.
Do a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Town reports, it's level funding.
We like that. Mr.
I like-
Chairman, I vote that we approve Department 195's budget as presented this evening.
Do a
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, just a note, I've got 2 more things to plug into the draft Selectmen's report, so I'll be getting that out to you for feedback and to Mrs. Aaronstein. And if you have a chance to read it over, and you can red pencil it or whatever you want to do to it. I'm mainly looking for, hopefully I didn't leave anything out that should be in there, all right? But
Are you
whatever
going
you
through
see.
the old meeting minutes and all that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And I think I've got about the same as last year on my computer. It's probably, I'm gonna say 3.5 pages or 2.5 pages.
Yep.
But anyhow, it's gonna be about the same length. I'm touching on a few things. But, for example, I mentioned the grants, but I'm not going into detail because other reports are gonna talk about those grants.
Mine
Or,
does.
the police station will talk about the police station. I'm just gonna say where we are with that and whatever, okay?
Sounds good.
All right,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Do you always start this early?
Huh?
They
I'm
were-
actually late.
I don't recall it ever being done. Okay, maybe.
Oh,
I
no,
don't
I'm
recall it being done this early either, but.
I'm actually late. I try to
Brady
have
had a
it a
tough
lot
deadline
sooner.
this year.
Oh, she's self-policing her progress. I like it.
Weights and measures budget
This is also
is
level.
also level funded. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Department 244's budget as presented this evening.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Workman's comp, this is also level funded.
Mr. Chairman, if you're taking motions, I
I
motion that we approve Department 912's budget as presented this evening.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Just a question, when was the last time we got audited on this?
We just did,
So,
Um,
is that in here? Or we're waiting
no.
for a number?
so we could partially pay it, and we're gonna do a transfer on May 1st, because
Okay.
Which one?
Where do bonds come under?
Which
What
one now?
kind of insurance?
liability insurance.
This is
All
the
right.
old one, I think it's the same figures.
Yeah, liability insurance.
And then this is what.
That one sort of encompasses a whole variety of things. The buildings are pretty much buildings, but liability comes into it.
Okay.
And the next one is tuition.
Tuition, this is, you can't see it, I apologize, this is also level funded, and right next to your document there, you have notice that 2 firefighters slash paramedics, Alex Green and Eric Gagnon, are interested in taking advantage of the tuition reimbursement program that we afford, so the level funded should accomplish
Okay.
this.
Yeah, that
Mr.
was
Chairman,
the
I move that we approve the budget, the proposed budget for Department 920 tuition in the amount of $4,000 as presented.
Is there a
Second.
second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Liability insurance, this is also, well,
I don't have.
it's
this.
less,
I don't have that.
Oh, you don't?
liability insurance.
Oh, wait a minute.
I can look on with you. It's okay, so I can chief.
Oh, yeah, I got one now. There was that letter from the chief.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's not,
Slipped it right in there.
yeah, it got put after something
there we go.
else. I see
Yep,
it.
I see it now.
Is
I had my
this-
old copy.
So
So
this
that's-
is down.
This is down, which is good.
Our liabilities are down, folks.
Don't say that.
I know, I almost said something to tempt fate, so don't.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Department 945's budget as presented this evening.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
I do just want to make one mention about this. We do have some new vehicles coming on. 2 of the highway superintendent's vehicles are about to arrive in the spring. So I just want you to know this might change again when those come on. I'm not expecting it, but I feel like I should just say it just in case. Because they're newer, large, heavy-duty trucks that are expensive.
Selectmen's reports, Board of Selectmen 5-year plan. So was everybody aware that we were going to discuss the 5-year plan? Or should we continue it to the next meeting, or?
Mine is
well,
just gonna be very brief, but yeah.
I mentioned it as the previous meeting. Mrs. Aaronstein and I are going, and I think Mr. Ferry and maybe Mr. Agia, we've got to meet with the man from Weston and Sampson on both the fuel depot and the numbers for the potential new building. So
I've also called DEP once a week, and I'm just gonna drive down there, see if somebody exists. I can talk to them.
yeah, because we're talking about the transfer
new building?
station. Well,
The fuel depot and the highway department, we wanna know if what we.
both of them are proposed for the transfer station, but because that is a landfill, or part of it is, DEP gets involved. And is it your understanding they sort of have to give us the blessing initially, then we move ahead, but we keep them involved?
It's a change of use, yes.
And what we wanna do is apply at the same time for both buildings, so that we cut the permitting time frame in half, essentially. So that's what we wanna ask if we can do that.
The abandoned landfill, wait for the limited assessment.
Okay. Will we have to go before the planning board with this proposal?
At the appropriate time, yes.
Any other board?
Maybe.
Well, conservation will
Conservation.
keep an eye on it, I'm sure.
Possible conservation for both projects,
Okay.
because the 100-foot setback for the wetland, we're close
Okay,
on both areas.
okay. And planning, is that because of
The site plan.
a change?
Site plan review, parking,
Is there any zoning issue?
I'm not aware of it.
So,
but we-
okay. All right, okay, just a thought. So, since those are the two that we're really focusing on, and the other one's on the highway department and fire department list, most of those are equipment. These are the ones that really require the work. Now, in addition to Station 1 is a whole nother ballgame, and obviously we'll be talking to Chris about that too, but these are more than just buying a piece of equipment, so. But when we get info, we'll certainly bring it in, even if it's before the next 5-year scheduled presentation.
So is it planned to move the highway department before the fire station expansion?
I think a lot of it's gonna have to do with what we find out from DEP. The first strategic thing is the fuel depot. Assuming we have permission to do that, and hopefully they're gonna say, yeah, there's enough, I'll call it clean land, to build a highway department building, or Department of Public Works, whatever you wanna call it. At the same time, we wanna be coming up with some kind of an idea of what what Chief McGee is looking at, and a ballpark cost for that. So, there are 3 building projects, in a sense. And depending upon the kind of cost we're talking about, we'll be looking at different kinds of funding sources too, so.
So on my 5-year plan, I have 2 items on it. One is a new library. We are still on the waiting list for the renovation of the Andrew Carnegie Public Library. We are number 14 on the list. The library trustees are forming a strategic planning committee, and I am joining this committee. We will be working with a consultant who will be interviewing town residents, and we will assist in the creation of these interviewing questions. The second item is making town buildings ADA compliant. As of the October 28th special town meeting, the town approved the hiring of an ADA coordinator and the formation of the ADA commission. I would like to thank the town for their support. This past December, this board appointed Jonathan Gale as our ADA coordinator. On January 8th, the Board of Selectmen formed the ADA Commission, appointed Jonathan Gale to the commission. We are seeking members to join this 5-member commission. In December, Dayton was awarded the $30,000 ADA Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan Grant from the Massachusetts Office of Disabilities to assist the town in removing barriers and improving the accessibility to our town buildings. This grant will provide funds to pay a consultant to review our town buildings and provide us with a blueprint to move forward with the recommended improvements. These improvements will not happen overnight and will be part of our 5-year plan. A request for proposals for a consultant was released on January 13th with a deadline of February 10th. A contract will be awarded by February 19th. And I would like to thank Jonathan Gale and Mallory Aristine for their help in getting the grant.
Mr. Chairman, on the library
Yep.
part, you're gonna be working with a consultant, questions and so forth and so on. Are we looking at totally new plans?
I think what we're going to try to see what the public wants to do. I'm in favor, as you know, in not adding on to that building over there. I want a new library. I think it actually is going to be cheaper for the town. But there's other options too. So we're going to have a committee that we're going to meet with a consultant, and we're going to discuss questions that the public should be asked. We'll have a public forum also. But we want to get the input of the townspeople. I want a new library, doesn't mean the townspeople want a new library, but we want to get feedback from them. They may want to stay with adding on to the library now. Right now, we're number 14, we're adding on to the library. If we change the plan, we're going to go back down on the list again, so it's something we have to take into consideration.
Can I ask a silly question? Isn't it possible, though, that if the Board of Trustees, I forget how it all works, if they submit a complete new plan for a new library next door, isn't there a chance we would be higher on the list?
Yes.
That's your
Yes.
feeling.
No, I've
Well, it
actually
makes
talked to
sense.
them,
Yeah,
because if
we
they
went to
don't
that.
like they being the MBLC, if they don't like really the project, it gets lower and lower and these other projects go ahead of you. So if we applied, we being the town of Dayton applied at a later grant round, we might surpass, I think it was our friends over in Swansea also are in the same boat, that they don't really like their plan, so they were last on the list.
Well, they're also
So-
doing like an expansion on a
Yes.
current.
And our new plan could, in the eyes of the MBLC, surpass what other communities are doing.
And
So
it makes
there is a
intuitive
chance.
sense that they would be more likely to fund a complete new library rather than an expansion project. Like, that just makes.
I did have a resident stop by expressing concerns about the strings that come along with working with the state in this capacity. So I will be exploring that. He referenced specifically a community that I know the town manager pretty well, so I'll be reaching out and just getting an understanding for his experience, so.
And Swansea's a little different. They're not situated, like for our public library, we're talking about going up. I don't believe Swansea's thinking about going up if they're talking about an addition. They've already got an addition. I lived in Swansea. I went to the library many times as a kid, and I still may owe a book on pigeons that I don't think I returned. But anyway.
I'll drop the dime on that.
He just did, it's
I
a
just
public
did.
meeting.
I just did. But anyway, I believe they're gonna add to the back of the building, so it's a little different. And they got space there, they got parking there. It's a little different from what we're talking about over here.
I think the positive thing, still going for Dayton, even though the funding didn't get approved, the original plans, that, I called it the Cape Cod style library that was presented, the white shingles, the whole bit. The plan was approved, it was initially approved, it was the debt exclusion that wasn't approved. And I think that's very positive. The proposal to change the existing library, I spoke against that. I support a new library, but not what they were proposing. So I keep wishing they could go back to the original plans that everyone liked, and maybe, I don't know what you do with them, but they must
Have to
belong
be
to
updated,
us.
right.
We paid for
It
them.
probably has to be updated.
And if they could be
Things have changed.
updated, that might be, and certainly we were higher on the list then, that might be a positive.
Yeah, thank you for your work
Yeah.
on that.
And that would
Glad to
really
see.
fit the neighborhood too.
Yes.
So, our building commissioner has been on vacation, so I don't have an update on, although nothing has really been done in terms of progressing the downstairs, as I understand. But regarding the sewer expansion study, I believe they're almost close to completing the study, and then we'll get some sort of a report with some estimates. So, more to come on that, but that report hasn't been.
No, so I met with them and went over, so they had a design, and Mr. Ferry was there, so he's my rep from the sewer commission, who helps me meet with these folks and weighs in on it, and we had a couple of suggestions from what they had proposed to us, and they needed to go back, rearrange those plans, resubmit them, and then we'll get our report and document. So we did have a minor delay where we had to work with another community that set us back, but I do expect that report in the next month.
So we'll have something for we'll have more updates on the next quarterly five-year plan update. Did you want to add something? I'm sorry, Mr. Ferry.
Yes, they have been conversing with me within the last week. They're still investigating the existing structures too that receive the flows. So that you're correct, we are expecting a final report soon.
Thank you very much.
And the only
Both
thing,
of you.
other thing I'll mention about sewer is, I was at the ZBA meeting for Strawberry Fields a week ago, and Mr. Williams, Peter Williams, the town engineer, had a 2-page letter, and there were a number of things in that letter that he needs information on, and specifically, he needs information about the town's capacity for sewage disposal as it relates to this particular plan. So that's one other thing that's out there relating to it.
Yeah. Was that well attended, Selectman Goulart?
Yeah, there were quite a few people there. As I remember, only 2 people, excuse me, identified themselves as area residents. One lives on Country Hill Drive. The other gentleman, I think, lives on Somerset Avenue. And their main concerns were bus turnarounds or bus pickup locations, things like that. And what has happened is the plan that was shown that night is not the last plan that I brought back, which is, we've got one in our office. They've now sent, the representatives for Strawberry Fields have sent that on to, I think it's Mass Housing Development, because they've gone from, I think it was 92 to 94 homes, now they're at 116. They don't think it's a significant change. Others think it is a significant change. So Mass Housing has to respond. So that's where that is right now. And they've got a meeting. The public meeting got continued again and into February, and it's probably gonna maybe wrap up in March. They're gonna keep it going that long to get information. But just as an aside from the Stormwater Committee perspective, the things that Mr. Williams had listed on his list are the kind of things we would be looking for info on. So I would say that his letter pretty much covered what we were looking for, too.
Thank you for your reports. Correspondence, announcement from National Grid herbicide application. So we have I'm not going to read the whole letter, but they're going to be spraying some herbicides. I hope I saw a date on this. This is something they do yearly. This letter is part of public record, so if anybody's interested in seeing this letter.
There's no date, it just says a 21-day notice.
Herbicide application notification, so they're notifying.
These are just the high tension lines, I assume. Is that right? Okay. Does the gas company do that too, or just the power company?
Just power.
Okay.
Second item on correspondence, we received a letter from the Cable Television Committee asking us to remove Max Colwell and Julia Gearing from the Cable Committee. They have not been active in the past 6 months. So I would entertain a motion to remove them from the Cable Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we notify Max Cowell and Julia Gehring that they are no longer members of the Cable Committee due to lack of attendance.
Is there a second?
Second, and if we can get a hold of them, to give them our thanks and appreciation. I know they were a big help, getting, moving our equipment over with the new equipment, getting all the new equipment set up. Also, things like the YouTube channel, that we have all come to rely on, so, we
In
do
the letter,
thank
in the
them.
notification, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. On the acknowledgements, Prime Time has received a donation of $100 from Donald and Brenda Herbeck in love and memory of the late Alice Lima, and they also received a donation of $50 from Donald and Maureen Pratt in love and memory of a dear friend, Rose Marie Benoit.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we acknowledge the donation of $100 to Primetime from Donald and Brenda Herbeck, and acknowledge the donation of $50 to Primetime from Donald and Maureen Pratt with thanks and appreciation.
Second.
A second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Minutes. I'll entertain a motion to accept for review the minutes for the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting of January 8th, 2020.
Set me up. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. And I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting of December 18th, 2019.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Approval of the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the following warrants be approved. 29A-20 in the amount of $104,410.63 payroll. 29B-20 in the amount of $153,581.67. And 29C-20 in the amount of $102.57, the last two being accounts payable dated January 15th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that warrant number 30A and -20 in the amount of $100,586.25 payroll, and 30B-20 in the amount of $190,691.91 accounts payable, dated January, I left pennies off. 30B-20 in the amount of $190,691.91. Accounts payable dated January 22nd be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Any public input? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Actually, let me take that back. I retract that. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Options 6 and 3, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. A, boat ramp road phase 2 environmental site assessment, ESA, and B, Muddy Cove Pond / dam discussion. And to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, police union matter.
Phew. Second.
And did you say open session won't reconvene? I'm sorry.
I didn't say that, or
But it won't.
did you hear?
It will not.
Only counts if you
Yeah.
say it.
So we will not be reconvening after this, not be going into an open meeting after this executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Cable.